Here we go. Welcome to the Deeper Dive. Awesemo.com, Dave Lochran at Laffy_D on Twitter. And then you got your boy, Adam Shaw at Ship My Modem DFS. Ship My Money DFS, of course. We all know what it is. And it is good to be here. We've got a pretty solid sized Tuesday slate. I was pretty surprised. I thought I was going to click it last night preparing for this morning's process show, Adam, and expect to see like 3 or 4 games. But we got an 8-gamer on a Tuesday.
Yeah, I think it's like 6 to 8 game slates every day this week, so it should be a pretty fun week.
Yeah, the scheduling has just been so much better the past couple of years.
Oh yeah, not having like 14 games on Monday and then 2 on Tuesday.
Yep, because I don't like the 14, 13, 15 gamers either.
No, it just becomes such a crapshoot. Like, what game is there going to be a random injury where a backup plays 38 minutes?
Exactly. All right, let's dive right into it. Atlanta, and welcome, of course, to all of our viewers in YouTube chat. You got questions, hit us with them, and we'll do our best to get to them throughout the show. And then live before lock coming up after us is going to take you up till 7 p.m. lock time. All right, Adam, let's jump right into it. Let me make sure this thing is muted as I pull this up. Yep, we good. Atlanta and Cleveland. Hey, you know it's bad. You know Atlanta's a bad basketball team when Cleveland opens as a 4.5-point favorite.
Yeah, that seems insane to me because Atlanta's at least been able to play a little bit of defense this year, whereas Cleveland's just atrocious all the way around.
And Kevin Love's out too.
Right.
It's wild. You know, oh, by the way, 227 total. I mentioned to Josh during our lengthy process show this morning that Atlanta's defense it's not that bad on the perimeter because they do have some long guys in Bazemore and Prince, but they're so reliant and dependent on 3-point shooting. Like we saw in the first half, they knocked some down against Philly. It was tied going into the third quarter, and then they just get blown out of the water because if Young and Bazemore and Prince and them aren't knocking down threes, they're kind of useless. And their role players aren't seeing enough minutes, some of them that can actually get to the basket to make a difference, which makes it a kind of interesting team because they're very much boom or bust as we've seen to start the season from a fantasy stance.
Yeah, absolutely. And they play at a fast pace, so there's still production to be had. This game, I think, is tough because we have no idea what Cleveland's rotations are really going to look like with Ty Lue gone. There were rumors that ownership's pushing for him to play younger players and that he was resistant to that and insisted on playing J.R. Smith and Kyle Korver, and that was part of the reason that he's not there anymore. So I think there's a chance that you end up getting a game here where you don't get Korver and you don't have J.R. Smith and you get more minutes for guys like Sexton and Sam Decker.
But you're saying they were pushing Tyronn Lue to play them more?
No, Tyronn Lue wanted to play J.R. Smith and Kyle Korver.
Right. Okay. I wasn't sure if you were saying upon this, okay. I wanted to make sure we weren't talking about the interim coach here coming in and already disagreeing. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Tyronn Lue's a buffoon.
Yeah. So I haven't seen anything official on what the plans are, but I'm, for tournament purposes at least, projecting the rotation to be a little bit tighter here, kicking Korver and J.R. Smith out of it. And so you get, I think, more minutes possibly for Sam Decker, for Colin Sexton, maybe a little bit more time alongside George Hill, which we hadn't seen a lot of under Lue. So I think it's an interesting game. It's hard to be really confident in the Cleveland side, but obviously with the pace Atlanta plays at, there's going to be points to go around.
For sure. Leroy Jenkins says, love the show. If possible, can you all incorporate some chalk fades or guys who are trending that you're not really feeling? Yeah, absolutely. We'll do that through the show. We're not going to make a topic of it because we want to get as much information in as possible in the hour. But yeah, I think, Adam, I think we can do a pretty good job of when we're touching on those players to make sure to say how we feel about them in terms of ownership and chalk and whether or not they're worth the fade.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, let's just talk about this game in whole because I think we can move around as we please. Larry Nance is one of those guys that you look at and you say, against a team that leads the league in pace like Atlanta, he should, this is the type of guy that, because Atlanta is decent defending the perimeter. They're not great at defending the rim. Like, I have a little bit of respect for Dedmon, but him and Len aren't exactly stalwarts. I feel like someone like Nance could, assuming he got decent run, put up solid numbers, but you're looking at a hefty price point for him with a new coach coming in. And then Cedi Osman is one of those guys where I say he's been so bad recently that it makes me want to target him against the fastest paced team, against a bad team, and hope that he just gets to the rim because he's actually capable of doing it. But I feel like we're going to get a lot of I feel like Osman is going to disappoint a lot this year, and then once in a while you'll get that 40-point gain that we got in his first and second. But that's definitely not who he is.
Yeah, I mean, as far as Nance goes, I'm kind of torn on what to do with him because the price tag is rather expensive. Like you said, he's 6,200 on DraftKings, and at least under Tyronn Lue, we haven't seen him playing any minutes alongside Tristan Thompson. That could change. It may not. But even if I project him, on the other hand, even if I project him for 24 minutes, he's coming in as a guy that is still valuable on this slate. I haven't projected for like 32 points in 24 minutes. Obviously, he has upside for more minutes if he plays really well and gets more minutes than Thompson, or if he does play minutes at the four. So I do still have interest in him. He's someone that I'll be checking ownership percentages on closer to lock. I assume he's not going to be very popular. If he were, then I would gladly be underweight. If he's not, then I'll be a little bit overweight just because he can be so productive on a permanent basis. And I feel similarly about Cedi because he's someone who I think if J.R. Smith and Kyle Korver remain in the rotation, I had him projected for about 32 minutes. But if those guys drop out, he's someone that you would be expecting to see more playing time and possibly push 36 minutes here in a fast-paced game at a cheap price tag. He's not going to be a consistent player, at least for a while, I don't think. I'm not sold on him, consistently outperforming his price tag, but the upside's certainly there, especially at this pace and in a game where I like a lot of guys from Atlanta. So I'd like to be overweight on some guys from Cleveland just to balance it out. So I'm sure I'll end up with plenty of Cedi in this one.
I was just thinking, like, how many times has Larry Drew been named an interim head coach over the past 5 years?
It feels like it's been a few times.
Right? It feels like a lot. Like, I swear at least 3 times Larry Drew has been named in. Maybe he's the prop. Maybe he's a snake in the grass working behind the scenes.
He's like the worst assistant coach in the NBA.
Yeah. Right. And then he gets named interim coach, and one day he'll hold on to the job, right? One day they're like, we're going to keep you. Yeah. It's crazy, though. I feel like Larry Drew's always named as the interim. But yeah, someone mentioned, I think Austin in chat said over under 25 minutes on Colin Sexton. It should be over. There's no reason that George Hill should be playing big minutes per game, right? There really isn't. I think Jordan Clarkson should be getting more minutes. But as you mentioned, we don't really know exactly what's going to happen here, Adam, and that's what makes it difficult. So, I think Cedi continues to see the minutes. Aside from him, though, if everything stays the same, that means that we're looking at a bunch of dudes playing between 23 and 27 minutes.
Yeah, and so I think the best way to approach this is probably going to be if you're playing, if you're playing like one tournament lineup, it's probably not worth your time to try and guess how this goes. But if you're someone that's max entering tournaments, I think that this is the kind of spot where you should probably be projecting guys closer to their ceiling, not trying to be accurate and guess, does these guys play 26 minutes each? Like, just project each guy for where you reasonably think they could get to if the rotation goes in their favor, and then cap your exposure to them and make sure you don't have them with other guys that they would take minutes away from. So that way you get some exposure to them in a ceiling spot without your whole night depending on guessing correctly at what the Cavs do with their rotation.
Right, exactly. It is a decent spot though, so something. Likely you're going to get a decent game or two, unless all of the minutes are spread out again, which I'm just not interested in. Cedi Osman's the one guy that I like the most because of his price point. And if you told me Nance was playing 30 minutes, minimum like 28 to 30 minutes, I'd probably have a lot of him.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if he plays
even at 6,200, I'd have a lot of Larry Nance.
Yeah, I mean, if he played 30 minutes, I'd end up with him projected for like 38, 40 points. It's just
maybe more. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I mean, the ceiling is clearly there. It's just that he could play like 22 or 23.
Right, 100%. All right. My buddy's walking into the house. He's about to do some work, and my dog's about to lose her shit. So here we go. He didn't know which one it was. All right. Just 1 second. It's going to be loud. Oh.
There you
All right. There we go. Yeah. See. Char- Charlotte and Miami. Let's move on. This game, dude, she won't shut the fuck up. All right, let me collect myself. 222 total. Charlotte 3-point favorite here. It's in Charlotte. Kemba Walker's got like a 98% usage rate and continues to put up monster numbers every game. I'm going to shut the door. You talk.
Yeah, so I mean, Kemba, obviously the usage is there. We've talked all season about how he did, even going back to last year without Dwight Howard on the floor, over a 30% usage rate, over a 30% assist percentage. So far this season, up around 35% usage with a 31% expected assist percentage. But then this is also, I think, a sneaky good spot for him. Obviously, he's underpriced for the minutes he's playing and the role that he has. But while Miami is a competent defense overall, they've been one of the worst pick and roll defenses in the NBA so far. Kemba, once again, is one of the leaders in pick and roll frequency this season, and he's also one of the most efficient pick and roll point guards in terms of points per possession. So even though overall Miami's a good defense, I think this is quietly a really good spot on top of a guy who's underpriced in a really, really nice role.
Agreed. I could hear everything you said, by the way, because these things are pretty good range, just so we know. Ringer and
No,
telling me
it doesn't make a difference. You don't listen anyway.
Not true. I listened to all of it. Yeah, I think with Whiteside, by the way, how about the 16 minutes from Olynyk yesterday on the 1-for-7 shooting?
Yeah, always nice to see Kelly Olynyk stay as consistent as ever.
I know. That was unexpected. But yeah, this she won't shut the fuck. This is driving me nuts, man. Okay, Kemba Walker, you got huge numbers from him. Did you mention Bridges?
No, I literally only talked about Kemba.
All right. Let's talk about Bridges. This was Josh's guy this morning. 3,400 on DraftKings. Pretty cheap everywhere. I'm not sure you like. It's obvious that you can obviously go with a dirt cheap punt. I don't know if you need to go this cheap. But if you were, because clearly there are some guys to pay up for. What are you doing with Bridges?
I don't really have interest in him just because without projecting like foul trouble for guys ahead of him, I can't find more than 22 minutes for him. The last game he played more than that, but there was, I think it was a blowout, but also there was foul trouble for MKG, I believe it was, where he got extra minutes. If I project Nick Batum to only play 32 minutes, and Michael Kidd-Gilchrist to only play 18, I still can only find 22 minutes for Bridges. And I think that I'm not confident that either of those guys play that few minutes. So I'm not really on Bridges in that price range. I would rather go, if I need a $3,300 guy, I would rather go to Amari Spellman from the Atlanta game. I think he plays 23, 24 minutes at 3,300 in against a terrible Cleveland defense. So yeah, I don't really have interest in Bridges here.
Okay. Oh, I did forget to mention Bembry, by the way. He could have. There's a possibility that we get a decent game from him here. He has actually played his minutes have been erratic. Like he's played 32 minutes in a blowout, 30 minutes in a really close game, 27 minutes in a pretty close game, 24 minutes in a blowout. There hasn't been much rhyme or reason. It hasn't been foul trouble. I think a lot of it just has to do with how the starters are playing, how the wings are playing in the starting lineup, and whether or not they deserve getting 30 plus 33 minutes a game.
He also got backup point guard minutes over Jeremy Lin yesterday, which was interesting.
It's kind of weird that Lin has just been a huge non-factor, huh?
Yeah, like it seemed like maybe just playing his way out of the rotation. He played 6 minutes yesterday with Bembry getting the rest of the point guard minutes when Young was on the floor.
Like I won't speak for you. I thought that Lin would get around 25 minutes. I thought they'd find a way to get him like 23 to 25 minutes per game. I did to start the season.
Yeah, I fully expected him to be playing plenty alongside Trae Young, not to solely be the backup and then apparently losing his hold on that job as well.
Yeah, it's crazy. Losing the backup job in Atlanta. Why don't we talk about – oh, and by the way, Nicholas Batum, eventually he's going to have that game with a 10-10-10 triple-double. It's the only way he does it. But, man, the guy's 5 shots in each of his last 2 games. He's allergic to the ball. One of them wasn't bad. I had some of them against Chicago. I think the price tag is fair, but I also think there's enough value, and you mentioned this earlier today, where you don't really need to go to a guy like Batum either. It's not one of those slates where you feel like he's the best case scenario in terms of 5K or low or high 4K options.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of guys around him. Kent Bazemore from the Atlanta side, I absolutely love at that price point. I just think he has a much higher ceiling than Batum does.
All right, what about on the other side, talking about Miami, Whiteside coming off that monster game. Granted, they're playing the second of a back-to-back. He played 29 minutes yesterday. My guess at him, he plays between 27 and 34 minutes today. There's really no way to predict it anymore, especially given the back-to-back and Eric Spoelstra's unpredictability with this front court. Even if it's just unpredictability with a 5-6 minute difference, it's still tough. But you're facing kind of a makeshift Charlotte front court with Cody Zeller and Hernan Gomez, and maybe Biyombo or Kaminsky gets a minute here and there. But this is not really an imposing Charlotte front court either.
No, I mean, I think it's a good matchup and a nice price tag for Whiteside, but I'm not nearly as high on him today as I was yesterday, just because the center position, for one, I think is really, really deep today. And two, I don't buy into it completely, but you need to at least, I think, factor in Whiteside's history on the second half of back-to-backs. Like, the guy has not played 30 minutes in, 2 years. And I think part of that, there's a lot of noise with him in particular, because on top of the normal stuff, foul trouble and blowouts and stuff and everything that limit people's minutes, you do have him for portions of the last couple of years being in Spoelstra's doghouse and just not really appearing to give a shit at all about putting any effort into playing basketball. So all that stuff is just stuff that I don't think is necessarily the case this year. But it's also not a Charlotte team where I expect him to need to be out there to match up with a center. I have Zeller projected for 26 minutes. I have Biyombo picking up most of the rest, with Marvin Williams getting a few. Biyombo is not a guy that you need Whiteside defensively for. Zeller really isn't either. So I have him projected for about 30 minutes here. I think that, you obviously could go a few less or a few more. But it is a decent matchup. You have Charlotte as one of the allowing in the top 5 in putback possessions per game this season, also second in opponent blocks per game. So it's a spot where Whiteside should do well. It's just that there's a lot of upside at center today, and I feel like taking on Whiteside is kind of risky.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Marc Gasol or Hassan Whiteside?
I have Gasol getting a couple more points than Whiteside.
So do I.
Probably. I haven't looked at ownership projections, but I would assume after yesterday that you're going to get Gasol at lower ownership than Whiteside.
It's very possible. I think Gasol's a safer option, but just from a ceiling standpoint, Whiteside always gives you that monster upside. So kind of a give and take there. With the rest of this team, where do you stand on the rest of this Miami squad? Because Goran Dragic is always just kind of fine in my eyes. There's never anything about him that stands out. Like, he's not a mega high usage guy, but he does take a good amount of shots. He doesn't rack up double digit assists, but he usually gives you 5 to 8 per game. It's kind of who he is, right? Like, he's never horrible, but he's generally never great. And then now you're starting to get the wing situation with a bunch of these swingmen muddy. The waters are getting a little muddy now, because you got Wade, you have Johnson, who can play between the point and the two. You have Wayne Ellington, who has not played yet, even though he'd been available. You have Richardson, you have Magruder, you have Winslow back in the mix. You have Derek Jones. Like, they have a lot of wings, and I don't even think I didn't even mention all of them now, and we still haven't gotten Waiters or James Johnson back, who will probably be used exclusively at the 4 and 5 when he returns.
Yeah, I don't really have much interest in Miami outside of Whiteside, just because of how many bodies they currently have and how difficult it is to confidently, project minutes for guys. Josh Richardson, I think, is pretty safely locked into 36 minutes. His price tags come up a bit. It's not a great matchup, but I don't hate him. Dragic, though, point guard's so deep that I don't really see myself getting to Dragic. So it's basically Whiteside is my favorite play for Miami, and then I don't hate Josh Richardson.
Yeah, he would be my only guy too, but I don't know if I wanted to I don't know if I'm looking to get up there. I don't think he's egregiously priced, but once again, there's just so many different ways the wings on that team can go. And if it's not minutes, it's fantasy points. So uh, a hard pass for the most part there. If you're playing a lot of lineups, you sprinkle them in, because you can get that Richardson game like we had yesterday where he just explodes. But he's not a priority to me either. Talking about Sacramento and Orlando, this is one of the biggest topics of the night, and I wanted to discuss. Obviously, got into it a lot on the process show this morning. I'm sure when you first started researching this slate, without looking or taking ownership into consideration, one of the first guys that jumped off the page to you was Alex Gordon at 6,800, right?
Always Alex Gordon.
What did I say, Alex? Aaron Gordon.
Yeah.
Oh, did I say Alex Gordon?
Yeah.
Oh, of course I did. Of course, your favorite. Aaron Gordon at 6,800.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a spot where I'm not overly concerned about the ownership on him either. I mean, I expect he'll be popular, but there's not really guys around him that I think give even close to the same upside that he does. So
Power
I'm perfectly
forward
fine.
sucks.
Yeah.
Up
So
top.
yeah, exactly. So I'm perfectly fine just being overweight on Aaron Gordon and moving on. If he wrecks, 2/3 of my lineups, he wrecks 2/3 of my lineups. But that's not a spot where I'm looking to differentiate just because I need something to differentiate with that I think's remotely is good. And I don't really have that. We haven't really seen Gordon have good matchups yet this year. This is a good one though. It's, a team in Sacramento that ranks second in pace. And anytime I can get Aaron Gordon using his athleticism more, that's a good thing. It's a team that gives up a lot of rebounds. It's a team that gives up a lot of block opportunities. I just think, and it's a big team. So there should be no issue keeping Gordon on the floor. Not that there normally is anyway, but I just think it's a great spot for him. The price tag's too low, and it's just not somewhere that I'm looking to differentiate. The only thing I can say that I don't like about Gordon is that I also love Evan Fournier. I also love Nikola Vucevic. I also really like Jonathan Isaac, and I don't really want to be playing teams that have like 3 or 4 Magic on them.
Yeah, I know. That's kind of the thing. Even a guy like Terrence Ross
Yep.
is not the worst play. But when it comes to Gordon, like I just do want to take a look, unless you have our projected ownership pulled up. Do you have it pulled up by any
I do
chance?
not. I do not.
All right, I'll see if I can pull it up. The reason I say this is because if you were saying, all right, Gordon is going to be chalk and I'm going to fade him for that reason, I wouldn't blame anyone for that. And it's a very simple reason why. Because as much as I love Aaron Gordon here, he's still one of these players that does have a pretty low floor. We can both agree on that Aaron Gordon has a high ceiling, I think higher than some would give him credit for, even though it's not about getting credit. It's just look at what he's done, but also look at his floor. He's got that 25 fantasy point floor that, we've seen on a lot of occasions. So it isn't to say that I don't love him. I do. He was literally the first player that jumped off the page at me when researching today. Ownership right now on Osmond.com, we have him around 25%. So that would make him 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 7th highest owned player on the slate. So it has Batum at 34% too. That's wild.
Yeah, I haven't done crunches yet, but I'm pretty confident I will end up with more than 25% Aaron Gordon on DraftKings.
Yeah, I think if you're going to do it and you're playing a lot, you just go over I could see myself going a lot more than 25% Aaron Gordon here. And I think what makes the decision a little easier is that Vooch isn't 7,800 anymore. He's 8,600.
Right. Like I love Vooch, but center is deep and he's not overpriced, but relatively expensive. And there's plenty of guys that I can go to, whereas the forward positions aren't really that strong on this slate. So that also makes it easier to get to Gordon.
Absolutely. On the opposite side, with the Kings, Willie Cauley-Stein coming off another strong game, back-to-back 45+ DK point games, triple doubles and double doubles. I'm sorry, point, rebound, double doubles in 3 straight. He's been starting to see some consistent minutes. We know that Jaeger can pull the plug at any minute, and it's a second of a back-to-back. But we're probably on different pages here. I think Cauley-Stein's a pretty interesting option. Um, I think he probably sees another 30 plus minutes, and uh, I don't think he's overpriced at all either. So Cauley-Stein to me makes for a strong play. We'll get into the rest of this team, but talk to me about the Sacramento front court and where you're at first.
No, I mean, I agree with you on Cauley-Stein. The minutes should be there. He's kind of perpetually underpriced on DraftKings for what he gives you. But again, it's just a matter of how many guys there are at the position. We haven't even talked about Embiid at the top, but you have him up there. You have Vucevic, you have Whiteside, you have Gasol, you have Nurkic. Like all these guys have monster ceilings. So I like Cauley-Stein, but it's not like I'm going to be going nuts to roster him either.
Yeah, oh no, you're not going crazy to play him. I just think from a projection standpoint, he is in a pretty decent spot. De'Aaron Fox is another one of those guys that I like the way he's playing this year. A lot of pick and roll. He's getting the assists. He's getting up enough shots, nothing insane, but he's still very involved. And outside of one game, maybe you could say 2 games that were blowouts, his minutes have been really stable, above 30. And then of course, Buddy Hield. The thing about Buddy Hield though, Adam, is like Buddy Hield's not go. We have him right now as the 3rd highest owned player on this slate. Okay, on DraftKings. If that is the case, I can't. Like I'll take all the heat for it. I don't care. But I can never play chalk Buddy Hield. I just can't do it.
I mean, I think a lot's going to depend on De'Aaron Fox, who's questionable, and with it being a back-to-back, I assume
Fox is playing. Let's assume that he's in.
If Fox plays, I have Hield still as a really good play. You can get into the ownership for sure, though. Like if Fournier is going to be lower owned than Hield, I'll take Fournier. If Bazemore is going to be lower owned than Hield, I'll take Bazemore. So certainly you can play that ownership game, but I also still like Hield. I think he's underpriced for a guy that can play 34, 35 minutes and has been a point per minute guy, even going back to last year when he was pretty inconsistent. So I think that he's still a really good play from a point per dollar standpoint.
Sure.
If Fox is in, I like. Oh, good.
No, I was just going to say he's certainly underpriced, which is why his ownership projection is so high.
Right.
And like Bazemore right now is projected at like 6% ownership. Fournier is at 16, and these are the perfect references because those are the 2 guys you would definitely pivot with. Not Batum. I don't know. He didn't really have the ceiling. Maybe an Eric Gordon. He's around 15%, but no, yeah, you're right. He's still a very good play, which is why he's so expensive. But I know that Buddy Hield, he's got another season under his belt. He's maturing. He's getting older. He's getting a little better. He's getting more consistent. He's getting the minutes. All of that's awesome. But that doesn't mean that Buddy Hield can't go out there and just have a massive clunker. So for me, it really does depend on ownership when it comes to Hield.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you there, just because there are actually pivots around him that I like pretty close to similarly, to equally. It's not, if we had pivots like that on Aaron Gordon, then we'd be having the same conversation, but I don't think we do. Whereas here, a bunch of guys at the same price point that I think all have monster ceilings.
Very good point. Very good point. On Aaron Gordon, so there's just really nothing comparable. Maybe like Larry Nance, but he's just as risky. So
yeah, and you're still, even if you get optimistic with Nance minute projections, you're still losing like 8 minutes to Aaron Gordon, probably.
Right. And by the way, I don't even want to say Aaron Gordon's risky. I mean, chalk Aaron Gordon can be risky. Just so we're clear. Anything else in Sacramento you want to talk about? Bjelica, Bagley?
Yeah, I mean, those guys are fine. They're playing a big Orlando team. Bagley, I'm hoping we just get random news that Costa Koufos is also out on the second half of a back-to-back, because I would get pretty interested in Bagley. I already like that Shumpert's out. I think you get some time at the 3 for Bagley. I have him projected for 24 minutes right now. If he can get some backup 5 minutes, then suddenly he becomes like a really sneaky play, I think. But without that news, it's hard to really pay his price tag. Obviously, De'Aaron Fox is the big thing. If he's out, then you get Frank Mason, who becomes one of the easiest value plays on the slate at 3,200 on DraftKings, probably locked into like 30 minutes. But that's something that, we'll have to keep an eye on.
Right. Yeah. That's kind of just we don't need to spend time on that. If Fox is out, and this is a 7:00 game, it's an East Coast game. if Fox is out, it's kind of like you know what to do. Really, that's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? We don't have to really continue there. Uh, and I wouldn't mind just skipping right by Boston and Detroit. Like I know Andre Boston's defense is so good, Adam. This is no anomaly. This is a really, really good defense. The only weakness is they have an undersized, easy for me to say, front court, and they're giving up the third most rebounds to their opponents per game. They're also holding them to the second lowest field goal percentage. I could just rattle on with the numbers, but we only have so much time, so you'll have to take my word for it. Uh, I know that Griffin at his price point is enticing. I don't think I'm going to take the bait. If he burns me against Boston, I'll deal with it. If there was anyone, it would be Drummond, because I do think this is a beatable spot. But there are two concerns. One, you've already mentioned. One, there's pretty good value at center. And two, this game could be over by halftime.
Yeah, it's a game that I'm not prioritizing anything from either. Drummond's fine, but again, like I prefer Vucevic. I'll probably have some Drummond just because I'm not going to play a million Orlando guys in every lineup. But it's a secondary option for me. Same goes for Kyrie. $7,000 against a Reggie Jackson and Ish Smith led backcourt. There's certainly upside there for him, but it's also an incredibly deep position where you have Trae Young, against Cleveland for just a little bit more. You have Mike Conley against Washington for just a little bit more, and so it's tough to like prioritize Kyrie here either. So nothing that I love. Drummond and Kyrie would be my two favorite plays.
Yeah. Couple things here. Let's see. What if Fox is out? What if Fox is out? Yeah, we hit on that. If Fox is out, Mason's going to get run. He should at least. I know Jaeger has those bipolar rotations sometimes, but it should be the case. And then who is it? Let's see here. Kwame said Drummond's a sneaky play. Vintage Drummond 1% 60 burger. Yeah, I mean, like he's the one guy on this Detroit squad that I'd have interest in. He has a lot of upside. I think more so in terms of rebounding and blocked shots than he does scoring here. But if you were to ask me if I like him or Griffin better, I definitely like Drummond better. Glad you brought up Irving too, Adam. Irving's another guy where it's like, okay, $7,000. He's going to have that game soon enough. He shot 5 times against Detroit the last time these guys played, which was 3 days ago. And he's not going to just keep shooting 5 times a game. He's been getting shots up. He just hasn't been his normal self. The big Irving game is going to happen for sure. And it could certainly be tonight. So I still think that Irving is one of those guys that needs to be on your radar. How much he needs to be on your radar is a question of depth at the position and whether or not you think you can get similar guys elsewhere. It's also not like Kyrie's ignored entirely today. He's been talked about quite a bit, not just by us.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he's someone that I'm perfectly fine if I come in like even with the field or slightly over, right, assuming that he's like sub 10% owned.
Just in case you get that monster Irving game where first quarter's over and he has 40 fantasy points.
Right. Yeah, it's certainly in there. It's just that I can't actually prioritize him over guys like Kemba. So something like a totally kind of tangent for a second, but the position's even deeper today than normal. Obviously, there's a lot of good options, but even on DraftKings where you have multi-position eligibility, almost all of the guys are only point guard eligible. So normally you can get away with sliding guys to shooting guard, but most of them, almost all of the guys that we like are only point guards. So it makes the position even deeper than normal.
Agreed. Chadwick says lofty. Why do I guess he's talking to me. Why do you think the Irving game has come? Maybe it was an autocorrect. Why do I think it's coming? I'm not. It's not. It's the same thing as like a Klay Thompson. You're not saying that it's happening tonight. You're saying that Klay Thompson entered yesterday's game attempting 5 threes per game and shooting 13% from deep. Like it wasn't going to continue. Just similar in this case that, the cheaper Irving goes, the longer he goes without having one of those blow up games, just the better chances that are happening because of how good of a basketball player he is. It's really nothing outrageous at all. You can make the argument. Yeah, they have Tatum. They have Gordon Hayward, who hasn't really done much yet. They have other players on this team that can put points up, but Irving is also Adam, and then we'll move on. He's also one of those guys that if he starts off a game hot, they're going to feed him, just as we see with a lot of shooters. If you're a shooter and you get hot early, you're going to get fed, whether you're Donovan Mitchell, whether you're Bradley Beal, or you're Kyrie Irving. So, a lot of it comes down to how the game gets started and how he looks.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's no question that he has a monster ceiling at $7,000. It's not a bad matchup against this backcourt. It's just solely a position scarcity thing, and there's so many point guards that it's tough to really load up on Irving.
Right. Philly and Toronto. Embiid, big disappointment yesterday, right? 3 for 9, played 30 minutes in the blowout, but had 28.5 fantasy points. Just a huge disappointment. Meanwhile, Ben Simmons got to the rim at will. I mean, he only took 11 shots. He was 5 for 5 on free throw attempts. Finished an assist shy of a triple-double with 21, 12, and 9 in 27 minutes. Embiid was struggling. Lloyd Pierce actually doubled him most of the time too, Adam. Not sure if you were watching any of that game, but they were doubling him quite a bit, which definitely had Simmons and such just say, all right, well, we know that we can take over, and they did, and it really negatively affected Embiid. But a guy like Embiid to be sub 10K, this is on DraftKings because he's still 10-8 on FanDuel, which isn't crazy, but sub 10K on DraftKings. I'd like to know, in a tough matchup against the Toronto team that's allowing the lowest efficiency to centers this season, is Embiid, in your mind, still a guy that you would play? The answer to me is yes, just because I know in any matchup he's capable of producing, and people are probably sour on him. But we haven't gotten your take on this yet.
Yeah, so I like him as well, and there are a couple of reasons why. For one, there's not a ton of guys to pay up for on this slate. So it makes it a little bit easier. It's not like you're sacrificing guys like Giannis or Anthony Davis. And, at least on DraftKings, his price has come down a little bit. But for two, while Toronto is a quality team defensively, I don't really know what that they have the personnel to slow down Embiid here. Like, you have 48 center minutes going to Serge Ibaka and Jonas Valanciunas. Which one of them is slowing down Embiid? Obviously, you run the risk of they could double team him as well, and you can scheme the ball out of his hands, and that I think is the biggest risk. But if you go back to last year, the guy that they actually tried to use to slow him down with some success was Jakob Poeltl, who obviously is not there anymore. So even the fact that Embiid kind of had mixed results last year doesn't factor in for me because it was a completely different front court. So yeah, I like Embiid. The fact that he let a bunch of people down yesterday makes me like him a little bit more in tournaments, and I just don't think there's any reason to question his upside. I mean, you should get 36 minutes in a competitive game here. I think that it's more likely that I think it's going to be tougher for Toronto to defend him than it is to defend Ben Simmons, even though I also do like Simmons quite a bit. So yeah, I'm perfectly fine going back to Embiid.
Yeah, on the opposite side, we'll bounce around here a bit. I think you could definitely see Ibaka getting a lot of work here as somebody that might just be versatile enough to guard or to try and guard Embiid. It is a second of a back-to-back for him. I don't think playing 28 minutes last night is a backbreaker coming off a big game. But I think you see pretty stable minutes here for Ibaka with Embiid set to be on the court for 35-plus minutes.
Yep, agree with you completely. And also Pascal Siakam, I assume, will be really popular tonight, but again, should be in line for around 36 minutes here with OG out. Maybe loses a couple to Kawhi possibly, but at 3,900, I think still clearly one of the top value plays.
I totally agree. It was nice to see yesterday? Norman Powell was just chucking all night long.
Is that nice to, I guess, because you're not a Raptors fan?
He took 3 shots, dude. He played 27 minutes and attempted 3 field goals. It was all of them were 3-pointers. It was not exactly what you're looking for with Kawhi Leonard off the court. But yeah, he'll go back into irrelevancy again today with Kawhi back on the floor. We talked Embiid. I think we feel the same on both of the bigs in this game, both Embiid and Ibaka. Anyone else from this game? Fultz was my guy yesterday. I was pretty satisfied with what we had 31.5 at 4,100. I got no issue with that at 4,200. And he played 25 minutes, didn't get to 30, but he did close out the last 5 minutes of the game in a blowout. So we got some of that ball handling duty. He was more aggressive. This isn't the type of game that I have any interest in him for value. I'd much rather be against bad teams that are going to be behind. Where do you go on the rest of this game outside of the players that we've already discussed? Like, we haven't talked about Kawhi yet either.
Yeah, I mean, I like Kawhi. I think that, obviously he's locked in the big minutes here. He's going to be defending a ball dominant guy, which increases his opportunity for defensive stats. And he's someone that you and I had talked about, and I had said that overall this season, I'll probably end up being underweight a lot on Kawhi just because he's kind of more expensive than guys that have a 50 to 60 point ceiling, and he doesn't have the same ceiling as guys like Giannis and Davis. But that obviously isn't the case on this slate because there is no Giannis, there is no Davis, there's not a really great top tier to pay up for. So I think it will be easier to justify getting Kawhi in the lineups here. And then Ben Simmons, we didn't really talk about, but I do like him on DraftKings in particular. $10,000 point guard on FanDuel with no triple double bonus and a bigger penalty for turnovers. I don't really see getting there. But on DraftKings, he's only 9,100. He still has guard and forward eligibility. You get the bonus, and I mean, he's just been so involved. He has a 47% expected assist percentage this year. He's got a 22% usage rate. He's obviously still rebounding. You can live with some inefficiency against this Toronto team when you're talking about Ben Simmons at $9,100 with multi-position eligibility.
Yeah, for sure. His ability to produce in low minute totals is really appealing too. Both him and Embiid are going to be guys that I don't know. I don't expect either Embiid or Simmons to be particularly high owned. Maybe between like 10 and 14%. I think you have much higher ownership for Embiid, but neither of these guys are going to be like breaking ownership ratings at all. So when you have that upside at 91 and 9,700, it's really just the ceiling thing saying, okay, if we're getting them this cheap, which they are, matchup factored into it, of course, it's still a pretty nice spot in terms of getting away from the popular guys. You mentioned that you're going to be underweight a lot on Kawhi Leonard this year. You've given perfectly good reason for it, and I think you're right. Like it's kind of the same. Kawhi Leonard is your basketball You're going to like this. Your basketball version of Noah Syndergaard.
That's a really, really good comparison.
Yeah, right. All right, glad you like it. Now I'm talking about you, like yours, because the way you were on.
No, I feel exactly the same way. Well,
I know.
I think Kawhi's much, much, much better at basketball than Noah Syndergaard is at baseball. But
yes,
from
but
from a
fantasy
DFS,
sense.
yeah, exactly.
From a DFS sense, Syndergaard's always a bit overpriced, always a bit overhyped, and always a bit underwhelming. Overpriced, overhyped, and underwhelming. I like that.
Yeah, it's like I can always find pitchers that either have the same ceiling as Syndergaard or are a little more expensive and are just better.
Right. Lock in the 80-pointer for Kawhi tonight.
Yeah.
But no, you're right. On like a general scale, you look at Kawhi, and he will have the 50-point game. He's going to give you the 55, the 60 once in a while. It's going to happen because he's that good. He is better at basketball than Syndergaard is at baseball, as you pointed.
So I guess this is kind of, even on this slate, this is kind of my reasoning for why I just don't see me rostering Kawhi all that much this season. So he's 9,500 on DraftKings. I have him projected for like 48 points, which obviously is really good. But if you look at the guys around that I have around him in total points, you have Kemba, $1,000 less, Drummond, $1,000 less, Wall, $1,000 less, Vucevic, $1,000 less, George, $1,000 less, Lillard, the same price. It's just that the guys that can do the same thing as him are all cheaper.
For sure. Ring Rim says it's like my Lakers this year so far, Laffy. What, terrible? How many games have they won? 2?
I have no idea.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. You don't actually follow basketball.
Especially when the Wizards are doing what they're doing.
Oh, I love it. One more guy that I got to mention, and then we'll move on. JJ Redick. A lot of talk going on about Redick. He is getting if this game's close, Redick is playing 32 plus minutes. It's pretty much a certainty at this point. It doesn't matter if he's coming off the bench. Uh, I think his price is fair, Adam, but I've also been alive long enough to know that JJ Redick hot streaks don't last forever. And he's so scoring dependent. It's hard for me to buy into these 6 assist games. I think again at 5,400, it's okay, but who's going to be defending Redick? Danny Green, Kawhi Leonard? Because even though he's coming off the bench, he might stagger a bit, but he's still going to see like 25 of his minutes or more with either Danny Green or Leonard on him. That I don't love that.
No, and yeah, it's just not a spot where I really want to rely on efficiency from someone in the mid 5K range. The only argument I could really make for Redick is that I assume he's going to be like 125th the ownership of Buddy Hield or something.
For sure. Oh yeah, not even close.
But still, you have Fournier, Bazemore. You have a million guys that are in that range.
I like Bazemore over Redick, just if we're putting it simply.
I like Bazemore over all of them.
Yeah, of course. Well, yeah, we obviously like Hield over Redick and all that, but as a pivot, Bazemore is nice. You're right, they all are. Washington and Memphis. The total on this game right now in Memphis is 219. Memphis by 1.5. And you've seen a lot talked about Marc Gasol today. I always think Marc Gasol is a perfectly fine option. He's never 7,500 on DraftKings, reasonably priced. 77 on FanDuel, even more reasonably priced. Once in a while, you'll get that explosion from him, but generally, you're talking 38 to 42, 35 to 43 or so. That range of production is generally what you're getting from Marc Gasol, because even though he has every opportunity to be very if he wanted to be a ball hog and he wanted to just post up or his patented elbow jumper, he could take 20 shots, 25 shots, 20 shots a game, and no one would bat an eye. Actually, they would applaud him, but he doesn't like to. Like he doesn't like being the go-to scorer, so it does cap him a bit, but he's always pretty consistent because he can fill up the stat sheet.
Yeah, exactly. And it gives him a really high floor, like you said. This is also a matchup that I love for him. You have Washington playing at the third fastest pace in the league. Their centers tonight are going to be Jan Mahinmi and then some combination of Thomas Bryant, Jason Smith, Jeff Green. Like, it's a spot that Gasol should do really, really well in. And obviously he, facilitates, he rebounds, he does everything, but it's unusual for him to come out and really, chuck up a bunch of shots and have the entire offense run through him from a scoring perspective. So that kind of limits him a little bit. I still think that he can go out there and put up 50 here. I've been projected for a little over 40, which is really nice at a $7,500 price tag. The issue is just that from an upside perspective, if you're ignoring the risk that comes with guys, Nurkic can go out there and do the same thing that Gasol can.
Yeah, agreed. By the way, someone pointed out in chat, Jason Kelly, that Redick's only 4,900 on FanDuel. It's a reasonable point. Definitely a better play if he's $300 cheaper on FanDuel than DraftKings, or 500. Still think the matchup's really tough. Mike Conley's been pretty decent this year. He seems to have fully recovered from that heel injury. Still playing pretty solid defense. But he's also not particularly cheap, Adam.
Yeah, I mean,
at least not on DraftKings. Sorry.
Yeah, he's low mid thousands on low 7,000s on DraftKings. I have him projected for right around 40 points, same as Gasol. I like the spot. Again, it's a bad Washington team right now. They're playing fast. He should be able to do pretty well here, but it's kind of the same thing as Kyrie Irving, where it's tough to just prioritize him amongst all these other point guards. I like Walker a lot more. I like Paul and Westbrook a lot more. Obviously not in the same price range. But then in that price range, there's just so many guys that project very similarly, whether it's him, Lowry, Irving, Trae Young. It's just such a deep position that I'm going to have, plenty of Mike Conley. It's just, he's not a guy that I'm, jumping up and down like, oh, I'm going to have 40% of this guy.
Right. But I think he'll give you pretty good numbers tonight. He's 76 on DraftKings. By the way, thanks for all the thumbs up, likes already. For all of you guys in chat, we would appreciate it if you headed over there. Just move that mouse, 4 inches to the left and click like, because we really appreciate it and we love you guys. So thanks in advance. All right. One more here and then we'll move. Well, Jaren Jackson, I actually don't think is a bad play here. If he's averaging 6.3 personal fouls per minute or per 36, which, as you know, Adam, isn't particularly comforting. But at the same time, if he's not in foul trouble, he can play upwards of 30 minutes, and he's actually, getting up a decent amount of shots. So give me a quick take on Jaren Jackson. I like him tonight against the bad Washington defense. Give me your quick take, and then we'll talk about the elephant in the room, which is a very cheap Bradley Beal.
I like Jackson too, especially in tournaments. I think there are two risk factors that come into play. One being the absurd foul rate that he's shown so far, but also with Morris out and with Kelly Oubre questionable, I think there's a chance this game plays really small from the 1 through 4, and you could see him kind of phased out like we saw. I don't remember who the team was, but I remember Wayne Selden playing the 4 to close out the game for Memphis. And that's a little bit concerning to me, but I expect him to be very productive in his time on the floor, which means that at only 5,500 on DraftKings with power forward eligibility, I do want a decent amount of Jaren Jackson just for the upside. It's just someone that I don't feel is completely necessary in cash games today with the risk that I think he does bring.
Agreed. Yeah. Bradley Beal, talk to me quickly.
I'm interested to see what's our ownership have him projected out on DraftKings.
By the way, Fred VanVleet is out. Raptors starting that normal lineup with Siakam and Ibaka at the 4 and 5. What did you ask me?
Beal's projected ownership on DraftKings.
It is right now. It's got to be all the way up there. He is 6th, around 26%.
Yeah, that seems very reasonable. It's the price tag's stupid. 6,800 is absurd.
Way too low.
On FanDuel, it's not as easy at all. He's like 8,200. He's the most expensive shooting guard over there. I think that there's plenty of options for less, but 6,800 on DraftKings. I mean, this guy's going to play 36 to 38 minutes. You have, not that it makes a big difference, but you have no Markieff, so that's more shots to go around. Beal's been facilitating a bit more, even if you look going back to last year, alongside John Wall without Markieff on the floor, you have a 17% assist rate for Bradley Beal. It is a slow-paced Memphis team. It is a Memphis team that's been very good defensively, and that makes it so I don't mind pivoting some of my Beal exposure to other guys. Like I expect that I'll have more Aaron Gordon than I will Bradley Beal, but at the same price. But I still like Beal a lot. I still expect that I'll have a lot of him. I have him projected as one of the top values on the slate on DraftKings.
He is. This also is a spot where he could disappoint just because of the Memphis defense. But all right, we got to cruise through these last 2 games. Hand it over to the live before lock, boys. Josh and Eddie? I think so. Portland and Houston. Chris Paul take, and the rest of this Houston team go. I'm going to let you run with it. We only have like 7 minutes.
Yeah. Going right back to Chris Paul here. He really, really disappointed in that last game against the Clippers, but I still think that he's going to have a monster assist percentage. He's going to play huge minutes, assuming they can actually keep the game close. He's going to have a high usage rate. Going back to last year without Harden, up over 30%. Even if you cut that back a little bit for Carmelo Anthony being on the floor, it's still just a spot that he should do really well in whenever Harden's not in. So, I like him a lot. I have him as my second highest projected point guard in terms of raw points behind Westbrook. So I like him. Carmelo, I think, again, should play around 36 minutes here. He's still too cheap. Eric Gordon's fine as a pivot away from Beal. I like Beal more, but, Gordon should play about 36 minutes, and he gets a usage bump without Harden as well. So I think he's fine. Clint Capella, I'm probably lower on than a lot of people. I think he does fine, but at 7,700,
expensive.
Yeah, like I prefer Gasol. We've talked about him, losing efficiency without James Harden, goes down to about a 1.1 fantasy point per minute guy instead of 1.3, which when you're talking about a $1,000 price jump on DraftKings becomes really, really important.
Yeah, I agree. Eric Gordon, to me, just a quick hit on him. He's one of those guys that eventually is going to have a big game. And it's just up to you whether or not you want to be there when it happens and deal with all the bad ones. We saw it with Towns. We saw it with Clay. Gordon isn't that ceiling guy, but he's also pretty cheap. He's somebody that, attempted 12 3-pointers and made one of them just 2 games back, 21 attempts. And that was with Harden active. So Eric Gordon is still going to get a lot of opportunity. It's just a matter of what he does with it. I still think Eric Gordon's in a pretty decent spot, though, against Portland. And then Gerald Green, yes or no on Green? We'll make it quick.
Not going to have a lot of him. I only have him projected for about 24 minutes. Think he could see like 26, 27. But Yeah, I'll have some. I'm not going to have a ton though.
All right, I'll go out on a limb here. I think this is the game where CJ McCollum finally doesn't disappoint us. I won't even go into detail, but Lillard's going to see a lot of Chris Paul, and I think McCollum's matchup is going to be pretty easy, even if he sees some PJ Tucker or whatever. I'm not worried about that, or Melo, obviously. So I think McCollum's a fine play. We've been asked to touch on Collins. I'll let you round out the rest of this team, including the front court with Nurkic.
If you're going to play Collins, obviously don't play him with Nurkic. He's still just not getting – he doesn't get minutes at power forward. You have Mo Harkless back, so he's not going to start getting minutes at power forward, I wouldn't expect. For Collins to do well, he basically has to have Nurkic get in foul trouble, or he has to just play so well that Nurkic doesn't come back in the game after he subs out. Those can both happen. But obviously you don't want to play him with Nurkic. And if you're going to project those ceiling games, you still don't want a ton of exposure to him just because it's not going to happen all that often. Like I would rather – try and get a bounce back game from Nurkic here, who only played 17 minutes yesterday because of foul trouble, and then because the second unit just went nuts with Zach Collins playing out of his mind. I'd rather take a $6K price tag on Nurkic, be a little bit overweight on him most likely, and hope that he goes out there and has a ceiling game in a spot where he should be able to get the minutes against Capella.
Yep. All right. Sounds good. Lillard, yes, no, maybe so.
Yeah, I mean, some point guard stacked. He's expensive.
All right, and then quick McCollum.
Yes, he's my favorite pivot off of Bradley Beal in that price range.
Me too, and it's not even close. Okay, here we go. We got a few minutes to go. We can do this. Clippers and OKC. Russell Westbrook, 10-5 on DraftKings, 12K on FanDuel. A little bit of difference there. This game, right now, you're looking at a 227 total. Oklahoma City favored by 2.5.
Yeah, I really like Westbrook on DraftKings more than FanDuel. The price tag obviously is different. You get the triple-double bonus. He's just more valuable on DraftKings. So I like him more there. I do like him a lot. Right now, I'm projecting Steven Adams to be in. There were pictures of him at shoot-around shooting without anything on his calf or anything. So I'm assuming he's in. Not that I have a lot of interest in him, but it does knock Montrezl Harrell down for me if Adams is active. It gives Boban probably 12 minutes of action if you're looking to do that. Everything else is kind of just Jeremy Grant, I think, still a good value option. He should play probably 34 to 36 minutes if Noel's out, probably 30 to 32 if Noel's in.
Yeah, and we expect Adams to start.
Yep.
Yeah. I think Adams actually is not the worst play here, by the way. But I'm not sure you need to go there. I do like him here, though. Anyway, just because he's been OKC's playing up in pace this year, and he's actually handled it really well.
Yeah, he's going against Gortat, Boban, and
yeah, exactly. Boban might be big, but that's literally the only thing he had. Unless he can palm your head and throw you into the front row seats, there's nothing else to do there. On the other side, I wish we had more time to break down the Pat Bev.
I wrote a ton about it in the deep dive article.
Okay, yeah, because you and I went deep. You went deep into it, and you and I on direct message today talked a whole lot about it. Just tell me where you're interested in the Clippers. We have the same opinion, so I'll just let you convey it on this team.
Yeah,
Fox is active, by the way, available to play.
Awesome. Yeah, I like Pat Bev as a value play in tournaments. I think that the minute should be there against Westbrook. People don't really play him ever, so I like him. He's pretty easily my favorite guy from the Clippers because assuming Adams is in, I can't go to Montrezl Harrell.
And Westbrook's racks up like 6 turnovers a game, so it doesn't hurt that Pat Bev might grab a couple.
For more on Pat Bev, just look at the deep dive article.
On awesomemode.com. Any front court interest?
I mean, Harris and Gallo are fine, but they're not priorities.
Yeah, me neither. I don't think there's anywhere else to go. Pat Bev would be the one guy. Lou Williams does have a near 30% usage rate this year. You're just going to have to hope in 25, 26 minutes he can do it for you. There's no Andre Robertson, which helps, and this could be a decent game for Lou. But I don't know I don't think I'll end up there. Any interest for you, or is it just a Pat Bev night? Because that's pretty much where I'm at.
Yeah, Pat Bev.
All right, that'll do it for us. Thanks as always, Josh and Eddie coming up next, leading you up to lock. Hit us with a like. Many of you already did, and for that we greatly appreciate it. We'll see you back here tomorrow night, 5 o'clock Eastern on the Deeper Dive. Good luck tonight, boys and girls, if there are any.